Everybody says the same things to beginner devs. Make tiny games. But nobody actually shows what that looks like. So in this video I'm going to go from a blank page to a finished prototype. Ideas go planning and roadmap all the way to something real you can play. Because advice is nice, but proof is better. I'm starting with nothing. I'll brainstorm ideas with AI and then break them down into something tiny. Then I will plan it out in Notion with a simple roadmap and to-do list. And once the plan is in place, I'll build a prototype from start to finish. Just enough to prove that the idea works. This is what Make Tiny Games looks like when you sit down and actually do it. I'm going to be using ChatGPT as my brainstorm partner. I'm going to say, let's brainstorm some tiny game ideas that could be done as a Steam release and not take more than 3 to 4 months to complete. One button city builder, some short narrative atmosphere games, which is actually one of my previous ideas that ChatGPT must have remembered, and I really like this letters to nowhere one, but it might be a bit too much map building and can't really be done as a small prototype I could make in a few hours. The weird and memeables ones though are kind of fun, like the pet rock simulator. Take care of a rock, dress it up, feed it imaginary food, maybe it talks back sometimes, pure meme potential. Or a crow crime simulator. But let's go with pet rock simulator. I liked pet rock simulator. Let's real quick come up with the gameplay loop and the features of it. So here we go. Core gameplay loop. Care for your rock, unlock reactions, progression, the rock responds with quick animations. As you care for the rock over days, you unlock new decorations, hats, fists, and environments. Silly outcomes. The rock doesn't really need anything, but the players feel invested. You might run away, turn ascend, or unlock secret endings. The features are a stat system with happiness, simple minigames, might not be in the prototype, some customization, a day-night cycle, and reactions. According to ChatGPT, I can make this in 3 to 4 months, but I think it's small enough that I could do it even shorter. So this would be a 1 to 3 hour short experience, quirky enough for Steam and easy to scope. If polished with humor, it could even build a cult following like Bread Simulator or Goat Simulator. Okay, I picked my idea. Now it's time to make sure it's actually small enough to finish, which means cutting the scope to be something realistic yet fun to play. Let's tell ChatGPT what would a quick prototype look like for this that could be made in a day, and I get a 1-day prototype plan. You can have a rock you can interact with, it reacts in a funny way and could put something on it. The core prototype features. We have a model, we have some basic interactions, feeding, talking and cleaning, and some simple customization with a few hats and maybe a bit of feedback. How do we build it? It's really easy. Some basic shape, some basic script and some extras if you have time. And we even got a timeline if we need that. With the loop and scope clear for a prototype, I can finally plan the actual work. And for that, I use Notion. So I have this template I'm using for my projects. We'll call it Pet Rock Simulator Prototype. And we'll add all the tasks for the different things, the model, the interactions, the happiness system, the UI, and all of the little extras. And it's also very good to have a deadline most of the time. Even if you're not gonna publish the game, it's good to have a deadline, so you know that it's supposed to be done by then. And then let's head on into the roadmap. Here I just have 8 weeks lined out and basically just write what's gonna be done in each of those weeks. So first week I want the prototype done. All the current tasks I have placed in my to-do list should be done by week 1. And then if I continue on it, week 2 I want responsive reactions done with sound effects and particles. And maybe a simple customization UI so I can select which customization I want and maybe even some unlocks. As well as the stat systems with happiness, fullness and cleanliness. And let's actually move the responsive reactions to week 3 so we focus more on the foundations for week 2. A sort of progression system with cosmetics. And then for week 3 we can add progression system with room and map changes, and as well as a day-night cycle when the rock's sleeping. And for week 4, maybe we want some of the mini-games that ChatGPT talked about. We can make rock, paper, scissors because that fits very well. Or just make a game where we toss the rock in the air or something. As well as a plan for the ending or if there's supposed to be any story. While the rest of the planning is based on the prototype, this roadmap is more kind of like the full game. Alright. So the plan's set, the roadmap's clear, but none of that actually matters until there is an actual game on screen. So let's start turning this idea into an actual prototype. With other words, the fun part. So we'll start a new Unity project. As before, I'm gonna call it Pet Rock Simulator. I'm going to use a 3D template. Whatever you're making, you can do 2D, 3D. And I really like to organize my projects before I get into actually making the full game. This means I'll just create some folders like scripts, prefabs, and materials, so that I have them when I need them and can easily organize it afterwards. Let's just start really simple here. We'll create a 3D object cube and turn it into a floor. We'll give it a nice yellow material and so that it makes it more official, and then we'll add a small ball that will be the rock. We'll just slightly adjust it so that it looks more like a rock. We'll give it its own material, even though it's really not needed because it's already gray, but in the future, if we might need it, we already have it. We'll bring down the smoothness because maybe that makes it look more like a rock. And we'll also want to give it some eyes, specifically googly eyes. And we'll use a cylinder to do this, and we'll adjust it to make it the right size, copy it for both sides, and we'll make materials for these two. And I actually had to search up what googly eyes looks like to be even able to do this, because I totally forgot, because this looks like Mickey Mouse, and that's really not what we're going for. And this is definitely not googly eyes. These colors have to be reversed, so we'll do exactly that. We'll switch to black and white, and just like that we have two eyes that look kind of goofy, which is kind of the vibe I want to go for. This is not supposed to be some serious game, it's supposed to be a comedic and maybe memeable game. Now let's jump into a script. I always start with game input, which basically takes all the game input from the player. So I'm using the built-in input action system that comes with every new project started in Unity 6. We'll have the input actions, create a new one, and fix a get movement vector normalized function, which I basically just copied from my previous games. We also need a camera movement, so I went into my old game Automation Haven, where I had a free fly camera and straight up just copied that code and removed some errors in it and then fixed it for this. And now I can just drag that script on and it works mostly as it should, except the rotation speed is way too high. I don't know what happened between the transfers, but we'll just lower it to something way lower. And just like that, we have our free fly camera. So I've got the basic rock model in. Next up, I need UI icons for interaction actions. And instead of drawing them myself or finding an asset pack, I'm going to generate them with AI to save time. After all, this is supposed to be a quick prototype. Generate a simple cartoon UI image of a chicken stick club. And here we go. A pretty nice image, the kind of style I was looking for. Then let's generate an image of a cleaning soap, transparent background. Just like that, we got that one too. And lastly, generate a talking bubble in the same style as the other ones. And that went really fast. Now let's drag them into the project. And we'll create an interaction UI in the canvas and then create a button for each of them, call it feed button, and we'll remove the text and instead put a sprite and then adjust the size. 130 looks good, and we'll just center it down at the bottom, and we'll put the button up top of that parent, and then we'll add a horizontal layout group just so we can have the three buttons sorted out. Remove it so it looks good, and we'll put some spacing, and then let's add an image of the actual icons. So for the feed button we have the chicken club, but this sprite actually doesn't work, so let's put it on sprite mode single instead of multiple, and then we'll drag in it, and now we can see that we have these buttons. We'll just duplicate it because that's easier. We'll change the name once again to clean button with the cleaning soap icon, and then the talking button with the talking bubble icon. And let's see how it looks. It looks pretty good. Let's change the color of the background so that it matches a bit better, and we'll put an outline on it with 2:2 so that it blends in better. We'll change the size of the icon to make it look even better and fit the button. Then we'll change the color to something like blue, should work better, and decrease the size of the outline a bit. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's just duplicate this into the other buttons. We'll put an outline and the colors and paste it in. And just like that, we now have 3 buttons. We'll just change the size real quick on the icons. And now we have 3 buttons we can click as an interaction. So now let's get started on the happy animations. And I'm thinking that maybe a mouth could work with this, except it looks kind of weird. So we'll actually not do that. But we're gonna create an animation. This is basically the idle animation. We'll go into the animations folder and name it Rock Happy. Then we'll start recording, and let's see, we're gonna make it basically bounce up and down really subtly as a perfect idle animation. Just like that. We had a subtle bob that works really well, and we'll also move the eyes kinda up so that it has more movement, and we'll put it on something like that, slightly higher, and then let's reset it back. And now we have one eye moving. Let's do the same for the other eye. And now we have the whole model moving, and it looks pretty good for a prototype. Now let's actually do some more coding. We're gonna make the basic rock stats, you could say. So we'll just make a script called rock status, and we'll go into it, remove the start and update, and we'll have a serialized field for the max hygiene. We'll have a hygiene decrease rate, and we'll give it a header that's nice, and then we'll do basically the same for all the other ones with happiness and happiness decrease rate, and then we'll do lastly a food settings with max food and food decrease rate. I will add a decrease timer max and an update that uses that timer to decrease the statuses. So it just removes basically over time. And now we can see here in the console that it removes based on the decrease rate I set both hygiene, happiness and food. Now if we go back into the interaction UI, we're gonna see if we can connect the UI to the actual status. So we'll first add references to all the buttons, the clean button, the feed button, and the talking button. We'll add some events for when these buttons are clicked so that we can then update the box stats, and we'll just run the events when these buttons are clicked. Then we'll make the interaction UI into an actual instance so that we can access it from the rock stats. And we'll add a start that subscribes to these events and then calls the methods that actually adds on top of these current values. And let's add some events for when these different stats are changed that we can use later to update the different sliders and bars we're gonna have for them. We'll make this into an instance too, and then we'll send the current values through the events for the current hygiene, current happiness, and current food. And I actually made this wrong, so let's switch out all the max to the current values, but AI does this pretty well. We'll just change this from public to private, and then we'll set them in the start for the basic values. And back in the interaction UI, we'll add a clean cooldown, feed cooldown, and talk cooldown, so that you can press these infinitely. We'll add some methods for each of the buttons so that they can update the right cooldown. We'll make the button non-interactable and invoke the method to reset that button later, after the cooldown is finished. And now let's also update the clean button to actually use these methods instead of calling the events. Then let's invoke these events, of course, in the different methods so that it connects well. And back in the editor, we'll assign all the buttons as references. Then we'll see, and we can see rock fed food increased. We'll let it go down a bit, and now if I clean it, you can see that hygiene reset. So it works. You can now see the status updates in the console without any issues. Let's create the actual sliders for the status. So we'll make a status UI, we'll add a slider, and we'll remove the handle really quickly. And then I'm going to fix so that the field actually fills up the entire bar now that the handle is gone. Try and correct its position, kind of fine adjust it, and maybe something like that. We name it happiness bar, and I'm gonna go and change the size a bit, width and another height, and we'll center it up in the top left corner. Make it slightly bigger so that you can actually see it, and let's check in game. It looks good. Let's give it a color. It's gonna be green because green is happiness, and you can see now that it goes up and down when you change the value. Now to make the actual script for this, we'll call it status UI. It's gonna handle all the sliders. We'll go in here, we'll create references for all the sliders. We need to have using Unity Engine UI. We'll create a happiness bar, hunger bar, and of course the last hygiene bar. Then let's make a start, and we'll subscribe to all the events we previously made and update all the bars based on those. But AI kinda screwed this up, so let's fix it with by actually sending in the values that we had from our previous events. Something's not really working, and that's because we need to change from float to int in the rock status. And now let's also set all the default values to 100. Back in the editor, we're gonna add other sliders. We'll give them the food bar will be orange and the hygiene bar can be blue. Just to make sure you can actually see the difference between them, we'll drag all the references into the status UI and start the game, and let's see if it works. Now if nothing happens, and that would be because we haven't set the max value to 100 and it was still at 1. Let's fix that real quick and set the max value to 100. Now if we go play the game, we can see that it actually works. The bars go down, and when you feed or clean or talk, it goes up. Let's just change the decrease values so that we can see it more clearly. Now you can see that the bars are going down pretty quickly. Let's just rotate the rock real quick so that you can see it when you actually get into the game. Now going back to animations, we're gonna create a spin animation that's gonna play when any action is done. We'll just record this and basically we'll spin the rock around. And we'll adjust the Y rotation, put it on 0, and then we'll put it on 180, and then at the end just 360 so that it goes a full circle. And we have a basic spin, but it looks kind of monotone, so let's make it also jump. Just move it up a bit and then pull it back down. But it still looks kind of weird, and we can fix that by adding some smoothing or easing in and easing out right before the start of the spin and at the end of the spin. And with that little change, it actually looks a lot better. Let's add a new trigger to the animator. We'll just call it spin, and we'll connect the rock happy to the rock spin and then back. And the condition is if the spin is set. We'll go back into our pet rock script that we made before but didn't actually use. Let's have a animator reference. We'll make it a serialized field. Then we'll subscribe to the different events we made in the rock status instance. And we'll just have one method that's play animation, which is it just plays the spin animation. Subscribe to all the events and go back into the editor. Now we just assign the animator real quick and we'll test the game. And it spins around, but it spins around every single time it updates, and we don't really want that. We don't want it to spin when it loses or decreases, we just want it to spin when it gains. So let's create a new event. We'll just call it on trigger animation. We'll call it in the clean rock, in the feed rock, and in the talk to rock. And instead of all these different events, we just subscribe to one event. That might be cleaner code in general. Now it only spins when you actually interact with it. Perfect. Alright, the core game is working. We got stats, interactions, and animations. But I got inspired, so I'm adding a feature that might not be necessary for a prototype. Little text pop-ups that come up whenever you interact. It's a small detail, but it makes it way more responsive. These text pop-ups are kind of simple. We're just gonna make a 3D text mesh pro object, write something like yummy that comes up when you feed it. We'll adjust the size so that it's not huge, and we'll put it to no wrap, then we'll center it, and now let's create a quick animation for this so it actually looks good. We'll give it a parent so that we can animate the child. We can animate in a local world space instead of the global world space. And we'll just fix so that the positions are reset at 0, 0 so that it's clean. Put it as a test above the rock. Then we'll move the text. We'll reset the text to 0 at the beginning, and then at the end we want it to be somewhere up here. And we also want it to fade out, and we can do this by changing the vertex color. So we just reset it to be normal at the start, and then at the end we add a keyframe that it's at 0. So now you can see that it slowly fades out and we have a nice animation. We'll put an outline on it so you can see it a bit easier. Now let's go into the script where this actually works. We need a reference to the text pop-up prefab, and we'll have a method called show text pop-up. We'll make it an instance so that we can just call it from whenever we want. And let's try and fix this AI generated shit. We'll give it a its position, and I could turn .ident, and when it instantiates it, then we'll go into the rock status and we'll call the show text pop-up in the different methods. So for a clean rock, we're gonna have show text pop-up shiny, we'll put it slightly above the rock, and we do the exact same thing for feed rock, but we say yummy, and for talk to rock, we say maybe happy. Now back in editor, we can see that this didn't work that well. We had an error. That is because we took the parent object and we didn't take the child object. So let's fix that real quick in the script. Take the child, the first child, and we'll also destroy the pop-up after 1 second. And just like that, we have a working text pop-up. We can see that when we interact, the text come up for the right interaction. Now heading back to the actual plan, let's create some accessories. We're just gonna make 3 different hats. Let's create a child called hats. We'll make hat 1, which might be just like a top hat. So we'll have a cylinder as the base, slightly scale it down, rotate it a bit, and we'll kind of put it above on the eyes. Put it so it looks good. And now let's move it in the local space, and then we'll scale it down and scale it up a bit to make it look like an actual top hat. And this is so easy. With just 2 shapes, we made a very beautiful top hat. We'll give it the same color we used before as a black, just reuse it. And let's make the second hat, disable the old one. And I have no idea, let's just make something with a cube. Scale it down so that it fits well, move it slightly back, and we'll rotate it. Let's just basically make a mohawk, why not? Let's put a pink color on it, because that's what mohawks is. Let's just say that. We'll duplicate that, make our third hat, which I have once again no idea what I'm going to do. So we'll just put a sphere. We'll put it here, maybe some sort of stack of spheres. It could be a rock stack, so we'll just make some of them bigger and smaller, just something to show off. And just like that, we have 3 hats. Now let's go back into the petrock script, and we're going to make these hats actually usable. We'll add some references to each hat, hat 1, hat 2, hat 3. We'll add an update and just use Unity's old input system, because this is a prototype, so we just want to get it done fast. So when we press 1, the number 1 hat shows, when we press 2, the number 2 hat, and number 3 hat, and so on. We'll assign all the references back in the editor. Now if we test out the game, I can press 1, 2, and 3 and switch between all the hats. And animations also even work with the hats, because I animated the parent of the rock visual. And really, we just need some simple map here. So I went through my assets and found this cute tune furniture as a pack and downloaded that. So let's see what we can build here. Just place down a bed, we'll have some walls, duplicate that wall a bunch of times, put it in right scale and position. We'll have grid snapping so that we can easily place them. We'll change the floor slightly so that it fits better. We'll add a nice carpet. Let's put down some sort of chair, slightly try and fix the bed. Then we'll place down a fireplace, because every cute game needs a fireplace. We'll test some different ones. This one looks the best. A nightstand. We'll put some paintings up on the walls in a nice formation. See if there's any fun assets. We put a clock, maybe some dumbbells to make it feel more alive. We have some sort of table, might be great. And now we can playtest the game and see that we have a nice map. We'll just move it and organize it. We'll move the rocks so that it's on the carpet, fix the text, and now we basically have a complete map and maybe even complete game. We can interact, we can see the different values go up and down. We can make the rock happy or wait for it to get sad, except it doesn't really get sad yet. We can increase happiness by talking and by feeding and by cleaning. It has some different hats you can change, like the mohawk, the top hat, and the rocks. And this, I literally made this in maybe 4 hours. You can just do a lot with these basic things. And this is the whole point. You don't need polished art or a finished game to start. With just a few basic shapes and some simple code, you can build and test an idea in a matter of hours. Prototyping is what makes tiny games possible. And it's how you learn what actually works. So if you want to get better at making games, don't wait until everything is perfect. Just start small, build fast, and see what you can create. And if you want to know how to make your game timeless, check out this video.